Hello, everyone. Travis Rudros Pfeiffer here with one of my best buddies and testing partners. He is top 4 champion. Can you be champion if you're top 4? He's a champion in my book. You know him as Ghoul02, also known as Daniel Golias. Sir, how are you? Welcome to the show. How's it going?
I'm doing great. It's been a lot of fun. It's been really exciting, and having so much support. People, I got like a gazillion DMs as soon as I got top 4. Like, you got your invite, let's go. I'm like,
dude,
yeah,
you crushed it, and you had a lot of support in the chat too. I mean, there was plenty of people rooting for Kyle. It was the one match you had on stream, but plenty of people going Ghoul, 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 and yeah. So I guess we'll just kind of set the stage really quick. So I got to commentate the event for anyone who didn't get to see it. And Daniel, the one match he was on stream was in the semifinals, which actually ended up being kind of the ultimate match of the day because the finals they conceded in. So it was the last match we actually watched on stream. So you kind of had like the main event, so to speak. But you, of course, made top 4, which meant we have to go through your Swiss run and everything else you did. And dude, if I had a bottle of champagne right now, yeah, show off the cloud mat. Woohoo! Yeah. I'd pop a thing of bubbly right now and just spray it all over my computer, but it's not worth the cleanup, so I'm not going to do that. So I think, obviously, you were guaranteed your Nationals invite from that, but a lot of us in the chat were mathing it out. Did you have an invite secured once you made top 8 because of all the pass downs?
I already had it once I was top 8.
Okay, that's what we thought.
I already had it secured, but one of my goals has been to get one of the mats at minimum.
Excellent. So yeah, so tell me your prizes. What all did you end up getting then?
So we got a copy of the FF7 boss deck, which isn't super relevant because I already have one, but it's nice. I can now use Kadages, full art Kadages. I didn't have any restrictors that weren't in that boss deck, so I don't have to poach from that, which is cool. I got a pack of sleeves. They had a bunch of options. You get to pick based in order on where you were placed. So I got the Arya FF3, the Mitsuda art.
Mm-hmm.
It was the full art 2-drop backup that you tap it, give all of your forwards 1,000 power.
Yeah, but it doesn't activate or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I got that as the art on my sleeves. You get the Tyra for entering, of course. Top 32, I'll get a Chilinka.
Oh, nice.
Top 16, you get the Glaciella, of course.
Very nice.
Which was great. He was on stream a couple times. My good friend Alex was playing 13, and
yeah,
his most wanted thing for the entire event was to get one of those Glaciellas, and he topped and got the Glaciella, and he was so excited for it. I was
That's awesome.
Yes, let's go. So top 8, you get the Cloud.
Okay.
And then top 4 gets the mat and the guaranteed invite.
Nice. So really all you were missing was obviously the full set and the skip to day 2 if you take first. I forget, does second get anything that 3 and 4 don't get?
Second gets 2 boxes of From Nightmares.
Okay, so that was kind of the only thing that you alluded to basically.
Technically, if I had won the semifinals match, I would have gotten a day 2 skip anyway because Okimoto.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
Day 2 skip. So it was actually a pretty relevant loss, but I mean, you gotta do what you gotta do. It happens.
Hey man,
everyone in that room was really, really, there were some killer players.
Yeah, well, and you've accomplished something that a lot of people can't say they've done. I like to think I'm a pretty decent player. I've never gotten to make a top cut at one of these events. Well, I made one at a qualifier, but never something as big as a Materia Cup. And to go to nationals, that's nothing to sneeze at. So you should absolutely be proud of yourself.
It's especially cool to say. It's how'd you get your invite? Oh, I got it at a store championship. 20 people. It's no, I mean, I can say I got it the hardest way possible, which is I went to a Materia Cup and got top 4, which is
It was great throughout the day as I was casting. You would notify us, and usually it was very simple, just I got it, and I kept seeing that over. And I'm kind of waiting for the shoe to drop because usually, in our other testing partner hoods, usually you guys will get the first 3 or 4, and then round 5 or 4, there's usually the something went wrong, something went wrong. So it made me so happy that top cut. I just seen I got it. I was like, yeah, let's go.
You weren't getting much more than I got it because I was so fried at top cut.
I bet you were.
Oh my god.
Well, speaking of that,
so go ahead. Start from the beginning.
Yeah, well, let's go over your deck really quick. So obviously, I'm very familiar with this because we've tested with it so much. This is your official title is Sky Striker Mobilize Engage, but people may know it more naturally as Warrior of Light, Rydia, Rainbow. It's essentially a lot
Rainbow, Rydia, normally, yeah. But yeah, so it's kind of the natural, not even the natural, it's the evolution of what Rydia Turbo used to be. So if you're not familiar, you haven't been playing until recently, Radio Turbo was this deck that kind of popped up towards the end of, I want to say around Opus 15, early Opus 16. It was a deck that was entirely built around this Earth Water Sophie Rydia core. And the deck was very, very cool, but it was also very all in, and it would have issues with one deck exactly, which is mono water. We'll get to that later.
Mm-hmm.
But anything that could remove Rydia without doing damage would feel really, really rough because of how you're so all in and all invested on this Rydia sticking to the field, and if she just gets bounced or dies, then all that investment in this one forward that your entire deck is centered around, you're on all these really high impact summons, would fall apart. So kind of in Japan, there was this list that topped the first event. I want to say it was a Kobe regional or something. A mono win player won the event, of course. That's Final Fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
But inside this list, I saw this list. I'm like, oh my god, Rydia forward is still doing something, because like every Discord I've seen with high level players is like, oh yeah, Rydia forward's dead. It's all backup Rydia, all backup Rydia, all backup Rydia. And it's like, how did Rydia forward do something again? That doesn't make it didn't track. So I'm like looking at the list. I'm like, so it's this weird 4-color Warrior of Light hybrid, but it's still playing the Rydia forward. How is this working? And then our good our playtesting partner Hood's Claw Alex would play this list against me one time. And there were two things I saw, which was the Princess Sarah becoming wind, and then he played Warrior of Light into Rosa on me, and I go, it like clicks, like, oh, well, this deck just generates threats like crazy. the problem with Rydia Turbo is Rydia is such an all-encompassing threat that she has just a massive target on her back. The deck used to play Orin, Minwoo, anything it could to kind of just say, don't target me, go hit this other friend instead. Yeah. But if you've got Warrior of Light, you've got Fusoya, you've got Une, you've got Rosa, all these really, really powerful forwards, the Porum Legend, Rydia looks like a lot harder to get rid of because there's only so much removal in the game. There's only so much removal that actually hits Rydia.
Yeah.
She gets to kind of stick around, and it's this really cool, I call it a combo control deck, which is kind of the playstyle that I've adopted as the thing that I do better than anyone else. I'm slow control, I'm not good at. Turbo combo stuff in this game, I tend to not do amazing at, but this hybrid of a combo deck with control elements tends to be where I really shine, and this Rydia Turbo has always been that type of deck for me. It is Rydia Turbo and Earthwind, of course.
Yeah. Well, and Rydia has always been kind of known for those potential early lockout states where, if you get Rydia and Porum, Rydia whoever, the Yang you used to play, and if you have an Amaterasu in hand, there's basically nothing they can do because any big thing they do is going to be an auto ability, and of course you just cancel it. And we've seen these decks get to these, I was commenting about it on stream, we saw it where you get into this lockout state where you have 3 forwards, Rosa, Warrior of Light, and Une on the field, assuming Une has non-summoning sickness and can get a summon. And it's like, what do you do when they have an Amaterasu and Mist Dragon in the break zone? There's no summon you can cast that they won't go, okay, Une, get the Mist Dragon, cancel it. There's no auto, you can't Shantoto because they go, okay, get the Amaterasu, cancel it. Any forward you play goes Warrior Light, Rosa, Warrior Light. Like it's legit. I don't think there's a way out of that lock. If someone can come up with, besides maybe if you have 8 cards and you can go 18 summons, I don't know, but
I've had exactly one person break that board state, and it is not easy.
Do you remember what happened?
I want to say it involved either a Leo or an Emperor. Was the only thing I can think of that just straight up shut
Emperor
that down.
makes sense, yeah, where he just says, hey, you can't do any of that, but yeah.
But outside of that, it's so difficult to crack that board. And honestly, you don't even need the Warrior of Light. If you just have the Rydia, and it's okay, yeah, I'm going to get back a summon and cast it once every turn for free. Or Une is just better Sky Pirate Pinello at that point.
Yeah.
Instead of just drawing a random card every turn, I'm going to get the best summon back for my break zone. Don't mind if I do.
Yeah, the Une, man, you let that, if you don't kill that thing the turn it comes down, once it starts getting back summons, just ridiculous. So you've been high on this one for a while. We've tested it a lot. You've tweaked a few things here and there, but for the most part, I think most of the core has stayed the same. You made top 4 with it. You could only get a little bit higher. Would you change anything that you took that day? Or are you this is the set 50 cards I want to play with?
I don't think this list gets much better outside of maybe teching some of the summons for different formats.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really... I know that there's a lot of people that are on moving around like to the Radia backup as opposed to the forward because the forward is so vulnerable to bounce. But I think that the threat generation from the Radia forward is just, it's too good to ignore at this point. I've seen people trying to run stuff like Fire Wins the Day in the list, which I don't particularly like.
Yeah.
Just because if you look at my version of the list, it's very all in on Earth and Water. There's only a couple cards that like really require me to go out of my way to cast. But there's only 3. It's Warrior of Light, which I'm doing anyway. Cecil, which is only one color that's off, and it's the one color that's off with the Sarah Princess Sarah, so I'm probably going to have it at all times. And the Azura, which is a 1-cost summon that if I have a Radia, I can free cast it. Everything else, I can hard cast as though I'm just an Earth Water deck.
Yeah. Which is interesting too, because you actually, the only 3 of you have of the Earth Water dual elements is the Une. You actually only have the one Garnet, obviously the one Sophie, and then the one Sarah Mobius.
I love my Sarah Mobius.
I know you do.
Literally, it's actually one of my favorite cards in the entire deck. But yeah, so it's really just more so like teching maybe some of the summon slots, like maybe Mist Dragon's better for an event. You can go to 3 Mist Dragon, cut like Amaterasu, or maybe a Fenrir if like backup destruction isn't as relevant. But I think for the most part, there's really not that much that I would change. Maybe if you don't expect to see 13, you can cut the Gala for.
I was going to ask about him. I'm assuming he's mainly in there as 13.
Yeah. He's just one more answer to 13, and it's funny because it's the classic thing with 13 where the first answer to 13 is never enough.
Yeah, of course.
The Galif by himself does not usually beat 13. The first Heka doesn't do it, but it's kind of like if you start stacking enough of them, or like my personal favorite is if you get like turn 1 backup, turn 2 Rydia Fusoya.
Yeah.
And then you get like a free Sildred, and it's like, well, they have to deal with the Rydia Fusoya, which is really hard to do. But then also now you're holding the Galif, so as soon as they do end up getting past, it's like, by the way, here's the next thing that like stops you dead in your tracks.
I will. Oh, go ahead.
I'd say that's kind of like what he's in there for. Is he's just like the next threat. It's the conga line of anti-13 answers.
Yeah.
Warrior of Light.
So I have to ask about Porum, because we actually saw this on stream where I think you had 2-cost Baby Porum, Opus 9 one on the field, and you drew into the other one, and but it wasn't, you were kind of like your opponent wasn't killing it or whatever the situation was, and so it was kind of like a dead card in your hand. Does that still give you any, does that give you any kind of pause? You're like, you know what, that was just kind of a one-off situation. Normally it's not a problem.
So the 50th card was 2 CP Porum, and I mean, in my deck box, I had Echidna instead on the way to the event.
Okay.
And I kept thinking, and I'm like, there's so few situations where Echidna is better than 2 CP Porum. The only one is that I have the other Porum on. But previously in the event, that Porum actually came up as I did it on stream once, where I was playing against a Soiree player. They were on Lightning Soiree, really cool deck actually.
Mm-hmm.
They actually ended up topping. He went for a Man in Black, and he was thinking about digging for a Shantota, but he didn't have access to it.
Gotcha.
Because Man in Black choose a summon, and I go, okay, on the stack, Warrior of Light, ping, kill my Porum, get back Mist Dragon, cast Mist Dragon. And it's like the ability to like instant speed get back any summon without having the Une is so good in that regard. It just increases that critical mass of 4 characters, so the Rydia is just always powered up. And not like I don't want to play 3 copies of Porum.
Sure.
Like Porum is just an independently good card. Like both of them are. Like if it was Porum and Polum, I would be so happy to play both of them at like multiple copies. So, playing cards at 3 is not a problem in a deck normally. So it's just kind of a little split. The Legend is more threat generation for the deck, but one extra EX burst that happens to have really nice utility is not bad either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the flexibility, those action abilities is insane. I think on stream we saw you Warrior of Light. I think maybe KP was using like lightning to remove it from the game, and you actually like had it shoot itself so it wouldn't get removed, or it was some situation. Yeah, it could have been Shantota because he doesn't play Earth, so it must have been the lightning.
Yep, yeah, it was. He was playing lightning, trying to remove he targeted the Warrior of Light, and I'm like, well, I can kill the Rosa, but I've only got 1 Rosa in the deck. I should have a couple extra Warrior of Lights. But if I get a Kusith or something in damage, I actually want access to this Warrior of Light again.
Yeah.
And I don't really care to kill the lightning. It doesn't do anything. It's like, I'll just kill my own Warrior of Light. Why not? And I've done that plenty of times where, your opponent will Shantota you, and it's like, well, I don't want to lose this Rydia forever, or the Sarah Mobius. We're just going to ping her off and send her to the break zone so she doesn't die. And, you're not happy to do it a lot of the time, but it's what I like about this deck, though, is how easy it is to be reactive. You can use Warrior of Light as a removal spell on your opponent's turn.
Absolutely.
You can use Une to get back the best toolbox summon for the situation. One of my favorite things to do in the entire game right now is Fenrir bring back Ceramobius and then have Ceramobius cause a fight.
Yeah.
You get like this like double whammy of like your backup's dead, but also the forward you just played doesn't do anything. You know,
Yeah.
it's dead now. And it's so good when you get to do stuff like that.
So I feel like most of this list, we were kind of talking before we came on here, where we were saying it's not like it has any real job or category synergy. You know, there's a tiny bit of category 4 in there, but not really. It's really just kind of good cards of the deck, and we've seen this deck with a few tweaks for quite a while now. It was really prominent in Kansas City, which you were also at. Again, a lot of this is just really strong cards. So for the day, the 2 days, was there any surprise hero, or was it who you would expect? Une, Warrior of Light, Rydia, or was it, wow, this card showed up actually a lot bigger than I was expecting it to?
Not particularly. Like I said, the biggest thing is just every time I play Ceramobius, I'm amazed that it's a common.
Yeah.
She just does so much for the deck. You know, she's a draw card. Sometimes, like, you'll just have a bad hand. It's like, okay, well, I've got 2 backups. I'll just drop the Ceramobius. And the amount of times you'll go Ceramobius and then draw your next backup is crazy. Or the other thing that's so good about this deck, and it's why I don't like playing the 2CP, Fire Winzidane, is the density of good cards is insane. Yeah. Every card in this deck, I am okay with drawing. So if you attack my hand with that Zidane, I'm like, okay, cool. Next card I'm going to draw is going to be almost as good as the card you just removed, outside of maybe like a dead backup. But like, you also get to thin the backups out of the deck very quickly. So it's like I don't feel like I'm. The only thing that gave me pause with this deck, and the thing that made me, I was telling people, I'm like, okay, the last 2 weeks, I didn't play this deck at locals at all. I was actually playing Mono Win. Was this deck, I think, is so good that it had the biggest target on its back going into the event. Everybody was teching to beat this deck in the same way they were trying to beat 13.
Yeah.
So then the question was, well, can I go over the people that are trying to beat this deck, with, like, say, stuff like Chaos Arc?
Yeah.
Or Mono Water? All those decks that, should have good matchups into this. And I play a deck that beats those. And Mono Wind is the answer to those decks. I'm not a good Mono Wind pilot, as it turns out. After having played it at locals enough, I didn't feel confident taking it. But the nice thing was, I'm like, I know this deck. I'm good at this deck. If the Mono Wind plan doesn't work out, I can play this instead, and I have a pretty reasonable chance that I'm going to do well, because I do think it is probably one of, if not the best decks of the format right now.
Yeah, incredibly strong, incredibly strong. Well, it's all the kind of comments, questions I had about it. You want to jump into your day?
Yeah, so...
who'd you face round 1, or what deck?
Yeah, so get to the venue, a little bit of confusion. So you're kind of sitting there for a long time, because the Facebook post originally said, hey, get, registration, tourney starts at 10, the different like things that actually it starts at 11. So just to be safe, we got there a little early. So we're sitting there for a while. Okay, we sit down my first opponent, and I start shuffling, and I lose the die roll. My opponent says, okay, I'm gonna go second. I'm like, that's weird. Okay, sure. I'm like, okay, so this is probably like 13 or something. And I look at my first hand, it's got 1 backup. I'll get it away. Look at my next hand, and it's atrocious. And you're like, oh my god, first game of the day, and I'm already like drawing. Because that's the one thing that's like, you're playing a rainbowy deck, you can sometimes just draw hands that don't do anything.
Yeah.
So my play was, I go, okay, I'm going to discard. I'll play a Fusoya for 3, get back a Heka, threaten that at least if it is 13. Get the draw, dig a little deeper into the deck, and it was a mirror match. It was very interesting. I'm not sure why they opted to go second. I'm very sorry. I'm horrible with names, by the way. I don't remember any names for most of the day.
Yeah,
so
it's okay. No insults here.
Have to bear with me. But so we go into the mirror match of that, and thankfully Fusoya dug me just deep enough. Like 2 turns later, I drew like a Sarah, and then like from there it was like a Siltra. Got me my next 2 backups. And the main thing I remember from that game was a game where Fenrir won me at the end. My opponent had like a 5-card hand, and they Amaterasu something I did. But I noticed they pitched the Mist Dragon that I knew they had in hand, and I'm like, I can now Fenrir safely. And I actually was like planning on like double Fenriring to get out of Sophie to get the last point of damage. I'm like, okay, Fenrir. Did you have an answer to Sophie? He's like, I don't. GG's.
Huh,
so
nice.
Fenrir. Oh, I love Fenrir. It's such a good card.
Well, yeah, when you get that 2-for-1 value, it's ridiculous. Very strong. Real quick, I have to ask you about the venue itself, because I heard people say this, and then I saw photos, so I was like, oh, they were real. So some people were playing in a tent. Like, was the store just lacking for space, or what was the whole tent thing about?
The store wasn't big enough, so tables 1 through 20 were inside their normal play area, but they just had a big old tent outside, which was a little scary. I'm not gonna lie. Like my round 1 was outside under this tent. and it was like drizzling, like almost like a you know like a Florida type drizzle where it's like it's raining a little bit, like enough to be annoying, but not so much that like
Right.
a run, get your umbrella, cover up. But it's like I don't really want to bring my deck out in this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like kind of. It wasn't like a big deal or anything.
Okay. I just didn't know if it was for space reasons or if like it was some special thing they did or what.
They had like 3 buildings. They had like one area that was like just like a little mini lobby that basically it was another bathroom is what it was, almost used as. They had a playroom which was a bunch of tables lined up, maybe 24 tables, worth of room. And they had an actual shop on the far right that had your normal card games.
Yeah.
Shop where it's got a bunch of board games on the right, on the left behind the counters, all the TCGs, your Magics, your Yu-Gi-Ohs, your Pokemons, your Final Fantasies, all that stuff.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah,
super.
A little bit, not ideal, but you make do with what you have, and it's understandable. Apparently it was like that last year as well, so it was a known thing going in.
Okay,
that,
so it's a space thing, for them. Well, at least you get a roof over your head instead of just being out there. You're trying to play in rain, just like soaking all your cards.
Yeah, I was gonna say, imagine getting a rain delay for your card game tournament.
Right.
No, the tent they had was super. There was never a question that the tent they had was like totally fine to play under. Like,
okay.
There was no leaking or anything like that, or any issues that were going to cause with that. So.
Okay. Cool. I was just
It
curious.
did the job more than fine. Yeah, no, it was an interesting one for sure.
Because I saw some comment. Someone was like, "They're playing it at 10," and I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And I saw photos. I was like, "Oh wow, they really are playing it at 10." Like, oh, that's good.
Yeah, no,
okay.
It was definitely interesting.
So round 2, after you did the mirror match, what'd you go on to face after that?
Would you believe me to say it was another mirror match?
I mean, I expected that deck to be there a lot. Like, I'm sure it had quite a few numbers there. We saw it on stream plenty of times, so.
So this was the Florida style that Sam Prime and a lot of the other players there had transitioned to, where they were using the Rydia backup. Apparently, it's a lot more similar to Eureka has a similar list as well, apparently, where it's Rydia backup, but you're running stuff like Zidane forward and things like that to try to like make up for the power loss by not running the Rydia.
Yeah.
Which
do you know who the target summoner is in that for her? Is it like Yuna or
Ico?
Okay, the Ico.
Ico, the Foolish Burial Ico.
Gotcha.
One that sends a summon from the deck to the graveyard, which is really cool because it means the deck can kind of like pseudo search out 2 summons over the course of the game.
In a way, yeah.
Like you can go Rydia, get a Mist Dragon, and you can play the Ico. Ico can send like a Sildra, and then later on you can you don't necessarily need the Ico on field. Play the 2 Cracker, get back the Sildra or whatever card later on you need. Like it makes sense, and it's the one thing that I wish that the deck had room for was something that could search a summon. Fortunately, all the cards that search summons are named Rydia.
Yeah.
So, but he did that, and he did not open well. His turn 1 play was play Rosa Pass.
Oh, jeez.
To be fair, there are worse opens you can have.
I mean, there are, but yeah, that's not great.
Rosa does kind of function as like a pseudo
9K
Brave in a way. She's like, if you like Heka, she like bumps herself out of the way, but like when she attacks, she reactivates herself on the stack. She's always like, active. Like, you don't want to do it, but like if you have to cast a forward that doesn't do anything, you can do worse.
Yeah.
So he got off to a slow start, put me to like a high damage relatively quickly. Because again, I'm like, okay, punch me with the Rosa. He gets a Zidane later that like rips like a bunch of cards from my hand, and ultimately though, I just got to the point where I got set up, and my only fear was like, okay, please don't break my backups, don't break my, I need these. He didn't have it, and once I started out valuing him, I got like the Une online. That the game was essentially over, which is kind of what happens sometimes in the mirror. It's like when one person gets fully set up, you get that Exodia state, and the opponent can't break it.
Yep. 100%. All right, round 3. Who's next?
Round 3 was Ice Lightning.
Ah, yes. The classic. Well, showed up huge in Florida, but it does seem like its numbers have maybe tapered down a little. I don't know how many people showed up to San Diego with it, but.
So the scary thing about this is it was like a Ice Lightning Waltz focus list, actually.
Oh, okay. Huh. That's interesting.
And the worst part about this was I sit down and I go turn 1, or she wins the die roll, I want to say, and her first play is the Ice Edward backup, and I go, crap.
Uh-oh. Yeah, I remember Hood's using that against you one night.
This deck is so heavy on recursion. If you can just leave that backup up, you could just say Une has no text, essentially, until I get the Rosa on field. And then the next turn, she warps a Theodore. And I'm like, oh, great.
Oh my.
So, there ends up being a lot of like kind of interesting stuff that happens in this game. I go Rosa plus the Legend Forum. In response, I get like a Sildra cast. I have Miss Dragon Amaterasu in hand. I'm feeling pretty good. I attack the Legend Forum. She Sephiroths. I Amat. She played the 3 CP Summoner backup from Opus 1 that can cancel a summon and had to use that to cancel the Amat to protect the Sephiroth.
Huh.
Which was like a cool play, but it was so expensive and it put her so far behind.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Then the next thing she ended up doing was she played Sid Randell, which locked me out of like everything for the next like 3 turns. It's like Rydia can't get counters with Sid Randell on field. I literally played an Une while my opponent had Sid Randell plus the Edward back. I'm like, this Une does literally nothing. But the big clincher that time was she hit consecutive Tyros into damage.
Oof. The old bonus burst.
Yeah, she was not. She's like, I think those just lost me the game. And I'm like, mentally, I'm like, well, those weren't good for you, but my hand was so crazy. Like, before, like once I got the first one, it was crazy. The second, I'm like, I don't know that there's anything in my deck I really want.
That's funny.
Which is like the worst feeling. It's like, they're like, it's not the worst feeling. It's like the best feeling. It's like I can just get anything, and I don't really even care because like. I had the Levy 6 to out the Sid Randell. I already had Warrior of Light Fusoya in hand. I was like set up to just pop off that turn. And it was like, oh. And she's like, that second EX. I'm like, to break it to you, I had everything I was going to do before the second EX. Didn't help things though. So yeah, I got the double EX, got to the Exodia state, and I was even doing the thing where like she went like Al Cid, play something on a turn, and then I went right back with Fusoya, put the El Cid back in hand. Fusoya to the top of the deck, and we'll like remove everything else, and did that like 3 turns in a row. She just kept replaying this Al Cid, trying to like slow me down a little bit. Like, oh well, I'm at least like I'm freezing your forwards. It's like got Rosa out already. So
yeah, which is is meaningless. So speaking of, so since this is Ice Lightning, and since you beat it up, I know you used to hate Al Cid. We're going on Opus 20 now. Do you still hate him, or are you kind of like he's not as big of a deal anymore?
I still don't like the card.
Yeah.
I still think that like Al Cid and Zeramis are there's cards that just create auto like answer this now or you lose.
Yeah.
Answer this now, you know, and it's like you go first and they go Al Cid Zeromus, freeze your backup. By the way, you can never put a forward down that's going to block me because of the Zeromus effect.
Yeah, or even Al Cid pushing it out of the way. Yeah.
It just like it creates this like game states of like draw Shantoto or Heka or you're going to lose. And now they're running stuff like Duke Larg, and I don't find them. They're like these like annoying aggro cards that I don't find particularly engaging to interact with. Because a lot of the game stage was that did you draw Heka?
Yeah.
If you don't draw Heka, you're going to lose to the deck, and if you do draw Heka, they're probably going to lose because they're so all in on this.
Yeah. Run Duke Larg in your Ice Lightning decks, folks. It stops Hecaton Kyre. It stops what's the other one?
It just blanks so many good cards.
Yeah.
It stops Titan from working against the deck.
And Amaterasu, that's the other one. None of those cards will die to Amaterasu in entry. So run your Duke Largs. So, but you beat your nemesis. You know, you
I did
were able
beat my
to defeat
nemesis,
her.
yeah.
And then was lunch after round 3? It's usually after 3, right?
Lunch was after round 3, yeah.
Okay. You don't have to tell me about lunch, but you can if you want.
They pushed it forward. They had cater tacos for the event, which was cool.
Oh, that's cool. Nice. So it was, they wrote on the little like waiting screen, it's taco time, but I just thought they were being cute. That's cool. They actually had tacos.
Yeah, no, they catered tacos for the event. It was included in the ticket entry as opposed to, normally you like some entry packs instead of entry packs. It was, we're going to cater a taco lunch for y'all.
Nice. Which
was cool. I can't complain about, free lunch. And outside of a little bit awkward because I'm like very like fastidious about keeping my hands clean and stuff, and I don't like. You'll see me if I'm like eating food with my hands. I will not touch my phone with anything that's like touch food.
I get it.
And
I get it.
I actually like the guy that sat next to me my next round. Like sits down to I'm sitting down my next round, shuffling my deck, and he sits down and puts a plate of tacos and an open Coke can on the table, and I'm like, excuse me, can you like put those somewhere else? Like, well, where do you want me to put them? I'm like, I don't know, not on the table where you can knock them over and damage my cards. Like,
yeah.
He didn't like that very much, but it's like, what do you want me to do? Like, I don't.
I get it. I'm very protective of that kind of stuff too. And yeah, like if someone were to just like dump water or even especially soda, oh my goodness, like I would not be happy about that.
Like my mat, I can't replace my Materia cup. Remember my re-raise mat that I got? Like, there's just so much stuff that I don't want damaged. Like, we're reaching across with cards and doing all this other stuff.
Yeah.
It's so easy to knock. I get it. Like it would suck. Like it's like but it's like we did just have like an hour and a half for lunch. Like
Yeah.
please try to not eat at a table or an event like this.
Yeah,
That's
I don't think
unreasonable
that's an
at all.
unreasonable request. Like, I'm fully on your side there. I'd be like, dude, look, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but like, come on, and not saying you do it intentionally, but it's so easy to just accidentally bump it, and then there's soda all over your Rydia. Like, ugh.
Yeah, it's like in the middle of a tournament, like you can't replace the cards at that point.
Yeah,
do I just
exactly.
have to drop at that point, like my list can't be accurate. I don't have like a second extra deck like hanging off to the side that I can just swap to if this deck gets damaged.
Yeah, that's a good question. I wonder what the like procedure for that would be, because like it would be totally unfair to kick you out. Huh?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so
Okay, so once he puts away the Coke and the tacos, this is game 4. What was he playing?
This was not that opponent. This is just the person sitting to my right.
Oh, okay. They were sitting close to you. I gotcha.
Yeah, they're sitting at table like 4. I was sitting at table 3 or table 2 or something
Okay.
like that. So I'm sitting and I'm playing against Ryan Chen, who was actually topped, and they were on Earth Lightning Chaos Arc.
Oh, okay. Was this like his typical X-Death Black Waltz thing that he did back in like Opus 17?
The list is on. Let me pull up the list real quick.
I haven't checked the. I only looked at your list, so I don't know what else is on there. Let me see if I can pull it up.
So
real
this
quick, too.
is. I mean, it's not in on the waltzes or anything. It's just like it's really heavy on like Man in Black Arc and using that to control the game state.
Gotcha. I guess the waltzes aren't so good against like 4 costs like Warrior of Light.
With Soiree everywhere, it kind of makes sense to kind of pivot away from that. It makes sense also like Man in Black suspending an Arc or similar cards is really good. And I knew there's a pretty good chance when I saw him that I'm like, okay, he's going to be on some kind of Chaos Arc because he was on it in Kansas as well. So I'm like, okay. I have a game plan against that deck of Princess Sarah is now Earth. My Warrior of Light I can only cast if I'm ahead and if I have a Tyro in play. Tyro becomes very important in the matchup.
Yeah. Oh, wow, he's got a Cisne in there, huh?
Yeah, the idea is you can pitch a Chaos or an Arc and you do like 10k damage.
Huh. How about that?
Actually, like a really, yeah.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't have to be a Turk card. I always think it's got to be a Turk card specifically.
It just gets those like really heavy like cost cards out of your hand for something useful.
Yeah.
It's actually a really neat tech.
Oh, that's neat. Sorry.
So
continue.
I do that, and this is where the game gets a little bit icky and like a total accident on my part, just a total brain fart. I feel horrible about this because I found out about this like literally afterwards. But at one point I get Sarah, Princess Sarah as Earth. I get Class 4th, and I get a Tyro. And he heckas my Sarah. And I replace the Sarah with a Kryl, not another Sarah.
Hold on, he
Mentally in my head, I still-
heckatoned Princess Sarah or 4-cost Water Sarah?
Or cost water Sarah.
Okay, I was like, wait a minute, I don't think you can target that light one. Okay, sorry, continue.
But he broke the Sarah. And I go, and I'm like, but mentally I still had the Sarah on field. So I'm like, okay, I've got my 4 elements. If I get Warrior of Light out, I'm good.
Yeah.
But I replaced the Sarah with Kryl, so I had 2 Earth. I couldn't have played Warrior of Light that game. I definitely did. So technically, it was a 7-0. It's what it is. It's like I don't know how that impacts the game state because like all of his arcs, 2 of them were in. He just like hard cast arc twice on me. Once to kill like a Sarah Mobius and like make me discard 2. And once
jeez.
to break. I think he broke like a Rydia to do it. And then I missed Dragon his breaks and got rid of both of those arcs for the rest of the game. The next point of damage was the 3rd arc. And I'm feeling really, really good at this point.
Yeah.
It's like the whole point of like the Chaos Arc thing is like offline at that point. I'm like, cool. Chaos is good, but like not good enough to win the game on its own. You really need that like arc to give it that extra. Because if Chaos was that good, people would have played Chaos.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Arc. But there is like that like weird cloud hanging over that game, and I found out about it afterwards. He was just talking to somebody. He's like, oh yeah, my opponent did something he shouldn't. And I'm like, whoa, like what did I do? Like I'm like genuinely like concerned. Like I felt like I was like, wait, what did I do? Like, oh, you had Cryo instead of Sarah, and you cast Warrior of Light. And I'm like, oh my god. He was like, don't worry about it. Just don't keep an eye on that in the future. If you do that, like it's like I sort of get what happened. Like you just thought you had because you usually would declare the Sarah as win, which would have not been a problem. But
did he not realize it at the moment? Because surely he would have just said something.
It until like after the game.
Okay, I was like, I'm surprised he wouldn't have just said something right there if he realized you had done that.
It's the reason why usually like for the rest of the tournament I was very careful. Every time I cast Warrior of Light, I'm like, okay, I would like tap it and like declare, these are the colors.
Yeah.
That way it's like I know I'm not making that mistake again.
I mean, that's good advice for anyone, right? Like, always check that because it can be easy to get into the habit of, I've always got it. And then, well, maybe you don't that one time. So, yeah, good habit to get into.
And same thing with like Fusoya as well. Like I'm always like, okay, these are the colors I'm declaring.
Yeah.
Also gets to be fun because you get to declare stupid colors for Fusoya. Like, okay, we're gonna tap the Kate Sith for light and the Tyra
Yeah.
for dark. It's my favorite stupid thing to do.
Nice.
Yeah, so I felt really bad about that. It was 7-0. I really don't feel like his deck was gonna have legs against me after the Chaos Art. But obviously, I can't. Like it's easy to say in hindsight, like, oh yeah, well, I would have won the game anyway. Like it's not fair to my opponent to say that either. So I'm very, very sorry. Ryan Shen, you were one of the nicest people I've ever played against. I feel horrible, 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 horrible.
I mean, step one is admitting it. So I mean, yeah, it's just something to keep in mind for the future. So all right, so that was round 4, and then moving on to round 5. What'd you take on here? And you're 4-0 at this point, right?
I'm 4-0. I'm feeling pretty good.
Okay.
My breakers are looking incredible. I play Ray Chow on Wind, Lightning, Chaos Arc.
And this list we know because this did show up on the stream, I think maybe twice.
I do not think you could craft a harder counter to my deck in a lab. This deck.
Well, you know what's funny too is when I first saw this list, our buddy Hoods, Wind Lightning, I did a video with him. He took that to, he went undefeated in Swiss at the first Australia Materia Cup. But this doesn't really feel like his list, even though it has a lot of similar cards.
Yeah, no, it's this really heavy control package. You kind of get the Man in Black to recur your arc, which is crazy. You have the Lulu, which is just such a insane card, and then the single hardest counter to Rainbow Rydia is 6 CP Cloud.
Oh, I thought you were gonna say Ixion, but
I mean Ixion, but if you could just play Cloud and say, okay, the Rydia and the Une both die for 2 CP, you can't come back from that. Same thing, you go, okay, I'm going to go Wall Fusoya. You go, okay, cast a card, tap, Cloud, break both of those. Well, cool. My high investment combo is just outed with one singular card.
Yeah, and even Amaterasu doesn't kill him, so...
Yeah, so not only do I have to play in this really strange way, because I knew because I sat across near him, because we're at top tables. You kind of just know what people around you are playing, especially when someone's playing something super weird like this. He sat next to me. I see I'm like, okay, that's a Wind, Lightning, and the Chaos Arc. What the heck? There's a lot going on over here.
Yeah.
So I see that and I know. So I can't make Princess Sarah win. She's got to be Earth this game, which again puts this really big onus on. I gotta draw the Tyro.
Yeah.
That's what I didn't draw.
Why? I just want to expand on that. Why can't she be win for this game? What does that do? Does it just give Chaos another element? Is that what you're worried about?
It just gives Chaos another element that I can never remove from the field. So Chaos, instead of costing 7, which if there was a dark card that was 9 CP to steal a forward plus have the arc tacked on, which is kind of what it is, right? The arc is if you think of it as being 2 CP tacked on to Chaos's cost, it's really what it is.
Yeah.
9 CP dark card that does that, that's you probably would play that, but you're not happy to, right?
I got
It's very similar to the old Nidhogg, right? Where it's remove a card in your opponent's hand from the game and remove a forward from the game.
Yeah.
But if you start making it where it's that costs 7 now.
Yeah, that's a big difference.
So it's Princess Sarah is Earth. You just put them where casting Chaos feels as bad as humanly possible, and you just try to slow them down enough to the point where by the time you get to the Chaos Arc, you feel good.
Yeah.
But I never drew Tyro. He got an X Death, and then he later on played X Death, but got to there were 10 cards removed from game. Very weird that he played X Death that early. I would have thought you would hold that for a while.
Yeah.
I guess getting my recursion off is good. 3 turns later, he drops a Viraldi on me. I'm like, oh no.
He only has one of it in this deck too. Wow.
Yeah. It was pretty funny when that showed up, but I was like, oh, I'm in a horrible spot all out of nowhere. Yeah, I mean, the Ixions ate me alive that game. The Lulu put in some massive work as well. Man in Black is, a massive problem card. I just was never in this one, essentially. This list is super cool. One of the coolest lists.
Yeah, I do really like this list too. This is really neat. Do you remember what the score was? Damage score? Was it just 7-0?
It was 7-2. It was not close.
Oh wow! So yeah, you really did. You had a rough time.
I mean, to be fair, this deck is a lot faster than mine. I'm trying to get that setup going and everything else. But my setup is really stunted because I can't do what I want to do with the Sarah, which now means that again, the normal logic with the deck is that if you have any backup plus Sildra, you have 4 colors.
Yeah.
That's not true because now I have to draw Tyro. If if I don't, because I can't field Shantoto in this matchup ever.
Right, because it just gives him a freebie, yeah.
Well, as soon as Shantoto comes in, he's just, it's like the meme where the guy's like,
Yeah,
look in the
coming out
lips,
behind the tree.
like, ooh, here comes the chaos to ruin the day, like, even something like I've heard like Kimari actually causes problems with chaos on field, which is hilarious because Kimari gains the elements technically.
Oh yeah, that's true. Huh.
The Kimari backup, so it's like there's no way to play around it if you have a Shantoto on field. It's like you're just gonna die.
Yeah, makes sense. So this was your first loss of the day, right?
And just my first loss.
And just real quick, since you've done quite a few of these tournaments now, mentally, does that change anything for you? Does it maybe help you relax that you got that first loss out of the way? Does it make you tense because like, oh, I really need to win? Like, how does that affect you, or does it not even bother you?
It tenses me up a little bit. Like when I'm winning, and I'm like, okay, well if I keep winning, if I won this game, I was like guaranteed top. I could lose my next 2 rounds and do any, I could play stupid the next 2 rounds.
Yeah. Because if you go straight 5-0, I don't know if it's even mathematically possible for you to not, even if you just bomb out the next 2 games, like.
Yeah, so it's like I'm like, oh, that sucks. I'm like, I don't have the guaranteed top cut now. I got to actually win one of my next 2 games. You know, if I win one of my next 2 ones, I feel pretty good. But that feeling sucks. But like, I'm also like, I'm playing pretty well today. Like, I'm not. My openings have not been amazing the whole day. At the Fusoya Open, but like most of my opens were like slightly better than the Fusoya Open, but not amazing by any stretch of the imagination. I was not drawing well to open my hand. If I'm doing that well while not opening well, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm
sure there's 50+ players who would have rather been in your position than where they were beneath you. So that was round 5. What'd you face in round 6?
This was Lightning Soiree.
Oh, Lightning Soiree?
So apparently,
my
opponent was playing Earth Lightning.
Okay.
And liked some of it, but said, there's a lot of cards in this I'm playing that I don't like. I'm going to jam Soiree in this.
Huh.
So he got to do kind of like Soiree stuff, but also he got to throw Lightning stuff. This list actually topped.
Oh, did it? Is it the I Dream of Genie Kusamano one? I think this is it. I see.
So he threw a Soiree core and an Earth Lightning core.
Yeah, with the Man in Black, the Gilgamesh, the Aranea.
Yep.
Huh. Yeah, that's interesting.
I mean, that's the cool thing about Soiree, really, is how flexible the deck is.
That's true, yeah. You can really do whatever you want.
He famously in Texas would play Wind Lightning Soiree.
Oh, yeah.
Where he would use, like, the Lightning backup from, like, way back that gives a 13-character haste and would give a null haste and, like, early on would, like, use that as a game plan while also, like, building up the Soiree lineup.
Huh.
It's, like, really, like, interesting, unique deck.
Yeah.
So I knew you could kind of just run whatever you want as your non-Earth element Soiree, and it'll run fine.
So how did this one go?
This was one where I sat down. He went like turn 1 like Amber Shinju, and usually when I see that I feel pretty good because my ceiling is so much higher than Soiree's. Like at most they're gonna go like Edel, Merald, right? Like break my thing. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna go instead Warrior of Light Fusoya, stack something, bounce this other like backup, Shinju to your hand. Like my ceiling is just so much higher that if I get to that point, I'm probably gonna win. Which usually means that like Soiree player is like tempted then to do stuff like Edel Irwin or something, or to like try to like rush the damage in, and that's just not efficient enough a lot of the time against my deck. I felt pretty good. They had like an Ixion that they like cast at one point to clear the field, but my deck was it was not a very close game, for better or worse. Like I said, this was the game where I had to play where it was like, I had Warrior of Light plus the 2 CP Porum and like a powered up Iridia.
Oh, yeah.
And he like paid 5 for a Man in Black and tried to get back like, I think it was like he was trying to get a Mist Dragon to like just draw or something. And I go, in response, I'm like, okay, I'm going to crack my Porum, get back Mist Dragon, cast Mist Dragon.
Yeah.
Remove your Breakman from the game. And he goes, oh, you can do that. He's like, yeah. He's like, oh, I never had a chance this game. I'm like, you never had a chance this game? He's like, funny. I was trying to like dig for a Shantoto. I was like, oh, if I have a Shantoto, I can get out of this. If I have a Shantoto, I can get out of this. I'm like, by what you did there, there's nothing I could have done to get out of the situation. I'm like, no, I had a free cast summon of any of the summons in my break zone.
Yeah.
And I was going to do whatever. If you didn't threaten the Iridia specifically, there was no chance you were going to.
Yeah, there's no escape. All right, well, sounds like that one didn't give you too much trouble. You're 5-1, so this next match is then very important. This is round, or I guess maybe not as important since you got that 5th win, but of course you'd rather win.
Yeah, so like at this point, I'm pretty sure I'm going to top cut. I was like 3rd in the standings as far as like my breakers were insane.
Yeah, you were.
Um,
You were the top of the 5-1s. I remember seeing that.
so I was like top of 5-1s. I'm like, even if I lose this last round, I'm probably okay. So I sit down. It was against the other player that got top 4, so I can actually look up their
Oh,
name.
Alexander Early from
Alexander Early, who was playing.
Forward of Light, I believe.
Yeah.
Or that's like his group
Another.
that he's from.
And they were on.
Oh, so it's almost a
Rainbow
mirror,
Radio
but he's
list.
got Arc Chaos in his.
Did not see Arc and Chaos, thank goodness, because I did not know to like expect the Chaos Arc. So I hadn't seen Alex play at all before this. I didn't know what deck he was playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I sit down and I get to do like I'm like having fun. I'm chilled. I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go Sarah. He's like, what a shock. He goes Sarah. And, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna play Princess Sarah. Get to do like the back and forth. Kind of have fun. We're both like we're feeling pretty good about our decks. And I got a little bit ahead at one point, and then he snapped back and stuck an Une.
Mm.
And he top decks for his turn. And I'm like, okay, I play a Galif. And I'm like, this Galif can answer the Une in one turn.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And I'm like, I'm going to be okay with this. It's going to be a little painful. I'm going to have to remove part of my break zone to actually get over the Une because I was on damage 0. But that's fine. And he goes Mist Dragon on his turn.
Oh.
So now I get to do the Thanos thing with Galif on the wrong turn where he just eats the whole break zone and gets massive. But I can't attack with him, so he doesn't do anything there.
Yeah.
He doesn't do the Une. Then I'm like, so then it goes to my turn, and I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to attack the Galif because he's brave. I might as well. And he has Amaterasu, and I have no break zone to like.
Oh, to pump him, yeah. Was he not on? Were you on damage 3? Was he 11 or was he
Damage
just 8?
0.
Oh, jeez.
So he dies to the Amat. I can't threaten to attack. I'm like, I will trade anything to get this Une off the field. I will trade my Rydia on field to get rid of this stupid Une.
Yeah.
Like, if the Une dies, I don't care. Like, he goes Amaterasu, and I go, oh no. So that Une ended up getting back, I think, 8 summons before the game was over.
Oh my goodness.
He got back like 2 Mist Dragons and Amaterasu, and like he's sitting here with like all these summons in hand, and I'm like, I can't Shantoto, I can't Heka. This game is over, and I'm in that state. It's like the most unfortunate part of like decks like this sometimes, where it's like you have 18 forwards in your deck, so just pushing lethal sometimes takes a little bit of time.
Yeah.
The game has effectively been over for 4 turns, but I have to still like kind of play it slowly in case something goes wrong.
Yeah. That's a stop, he's already dead moment.
Yeah, so he did that, and then like I didn't find out until the next day when I looked at the top cut list. I'm like, you were on Chaos Arc the whole time? He's like, yeah, I was on Chaos Arc too. They never came up. I was like, oh my god.
So I guess you lucked out in that sense.
Yeah. I considered like trying to throw Chaos Arc into the Rydia stuff, but I didn't like it with like the Rainbow stuff because like the Rainbow already makes things bricky, and I want so many different cards when I'm doing that.
Yeah.
I didn't want to like run that there. And I tried it with the Rydia Turbo Stylist. I'm like, I'm gonna beat the Chaos Arc decks by playing only a 2-color deck and play Chaos Arc myself. And then I realized that Turbo Rydia likes going to 2 cards on the first turn in hand, and if you have Chaos Arc in hand, you don't get to actually go do that.
Yeah.
So, that was not ideal, but yeah. So I lost that game pretty handily, but I mean, which I felt like pretty confident, but I'm like still overly nervous because I have terrible breaker luck. My breakers just always seem to fall apart at the wrong times. I'm like I was like number 1 here. There's no way I fall out, right? There's no way I fall out. I was still nervous I was going to, so I got the message like, hey, you're gonna make the cut, and I'm like, okay, cool, I can breathe easy.
Yeah, that's got to feel good. So 5-2, really good run through Swiss. Before we jump to top cut, was there anything special you did that night? Did you test it all, or were you like, you know what, I just want to relax, try to not think about it? And
so me and my travel mate Alex, first of all, I was like, okay, once I found out, I'm like, okay, I'm really likely. Alex just won. He's 5-2. He had decent breakers. Let's hopefully he'll get there as well.
Yeah, and I think he was number 16, right? Or 13. Yeah, he was 13. That's right. Oh, that's right. This is after the matches. Okay.
Yeah, he was 13 on 13. So
very nice.
You were like, yes, we did it. So we were talking about like getting Korean or Japanese. We went with Japanese. My stomach was a little upset from the tacos earlier.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about Korean barbecue, but it makes me feel kind of sick to my stomach a lot of the time.
Mm.
So I was like, I don't want to like sleep on like a upset stomach before
Sure.
playing some pretty critical matches tomorrow. I'm gonna get like a nice, Japanese food is relatively tame on the stomach. I'll get that, eat that, be happy, get some sushi, get some drinks, chat with my friend, walked him through all of his matchups because the funny thing about Alex does not play a ton competitively because he doesn't have time to go to locals.
Mm.
So his only matches he gets to play are against me, and there are decks I don't play well enough to give him good experience with.
Yeah.
So he topped, and he's like, Daniel, I got to find out what these decks do. So I'm like walking him through, like, because he was playing the Wind Lightning Chaos Arc list was his first matchup in the top cut.
Okay.
He's like, how does this deck play? I'm like, well, we're gonna have to talk you through this one.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, so I'm 6th after Swiss, and I know my opponent is Brian Berkeley, who is, I believe, a good friend of McGinty, who is one of my testing partners as well. I've got fun, so I'm like, okay, this should be good. It was going to be a mirror match in top.
Yeah, it looks pretty similar. He's on the backup Rydia, and yeah, he's got like the Zidane and the Furion, but very similar list. Okay, so start of top cut. Obviously, you've got the benefit of best of 3 now, so you can afford to drop a match. How do these matches go?
Oh man! So game 1, I get set up very quickly, do my thing. I think it was like 7-5, but
Gotcha.
Relatively normal mirror match win. By the way, the mirrors with Rydia, Rainbow Rydia decks, if one person doesn't get the Une established, are wild.
Oh, I'm sure.
Like the sheer like tempo swings that like go back and forth, and you're just throwing haymakers at each other, and it feels like this like massive slugfest. You're breaking each other's backups, you're snapping each other's forwards out, you're misdragoning the other break zone. Like it's super engaging and super intense, and it feels more like a chess match than it does like an actual like TCG thing. Like you're just like constantly trying to do the same thing to each other, but you're trying to do it better than they are. So we have our first game with that, and I take that. The game 2, he goes first, and he looks at his opening hand, and he goes, "Oh no!" I'm like, mentally, I'm like, please tell me he bricked, because like I don't. And I feel bad. It's like I really want.
It's competition.
The one win in top cut.
Yeah.
Just like the one win in top cut would just be so nice. Just get over that hump of I've made top cut in 2 previous events, and I've never won a top cut game in Final Fantasy. And he goes, discard Azura, pass.
Oof. Oh goodness.
And I smell blood in the water.
Yes, internally you're
I go class 4th. I go Sarah into the Princess Sarah next turn. I'm like, I'm set up. I'm doing my thing. I'm so good. And then I distinctly remember mid-late game, there's a turn where I have 4 backups active. I have Warrior of Light on field. I have 3 cards in hand. I have Sildra, I have Mist Dragon, I have Amaterasu.
Mm-hmm.
He's on damage 6. And I'm thinking, and I'm like, if I get Sophie with the Mist Dragon, or with the Sildra, and get her on field this turn, I win the game. 100% chance I win the game if he doesn't answer that. Mist Dragon and Amaterasu are the best 2 cards in my damn deck, though.
Yeah.
But it wins me the game. And I go for it. And Amaterasu's, I think it was a Fusoya I had to cast to get the extra water card on field. And I go, oh no. I just pitched Amaterasu and a Mist Dragon with a Warrior of Light on field, try to go for lethal, and he snuck it back that game.
Wow, so that's flipped it.
It flipped single-handedly, me greeting for the win, and I'm like, and mentally I'm like, oh my god, I just threw the easiest win I could possibly have. My opponent bricked. Now we're going into time. You're playing in time. Anything can happen. And we're these mirror matches are not short games.
Yeah, absolutely.
The normal time length of the game is 30 minutes for a reason. But we only have 70 minutes for a best of 3. We're starting game 3 with like 10, 15 minutes left. And I'm like, okay, I got to play somewhat quick. I got to make the right decisions.
Yeah. I've seen some of those mirrors too, and it's like people aren't playing slow, but that's just kind of how those decks work. They've got so many triggers and such to do. Like
there was a turn where we're like getting later. I think there were like 7 minutes left, and I'm like I'm like really trying to like puzzle my way through stuff. He's like, don't worry about like time stuff. Like I know you and I have taken probably about the same amount of time. We're not slow playing or doing anything intentionally. These games are just intense. You're doing your best. I'm doing my best. Brian is a lovely human being to play against, by the way. Especially for you, because I think he could just sense I was super, super nervous.
Yeah.
Like, I get to the end of this, and time is called. We do our 0, 1, 2, and I'm turn 3 in time, which is the last turn. And it's 5-5.
Oh man.
So I'm thinking of like, oh my god, Sophie by herself is lethal here, right? Like because next point of damage wins if it's on turn 3 in
Yeah.
time. I'm running through my head all of the situations where Sophie doesn't win me the game. And I'm like, I have to go for this. I remember like my hands while I'm doing these plays are legitimately like shaking.
Oh no.
And I'm like, okay, Sophie. He goes just be like the biggest handshake, like you got it, bud, congrats. I'm like, oh my god. Yeah, and then White Mage comes up to me and he's like, okay, I know you just played like the most intense game. How long do you need? I'm like, I need at least 5. He's like, take 10. I'm like, I will take 10.
Oh, that's nice of him. Good old David.
So
I'm sure you just had this exhale of just like, oh, yeah, when that relief.
Again, you just think of all the ways that like the Sophie doesn't win you the game on the spot, right? It's like, oh my god, what if he does this? What if he does this? What if he does this? So I'm like having to puzzle through. I even like cast an Une on the turn, trying to like well, if he doesn't do that, and we have to go further.
Yeah.
I need like blockers and things to do, and ways to win the game from there. And it's like you're like all these millions of things are going through your head. Like if it's not lethal, what's the best play so I don't like screw myself by like overcommitting to the Sophie and losing because of that.
I had a similar.
I just lost by overcommitting to Sophie.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm sure you're feeling that. Give your voice a second to rest here. That I had a similar feeling at the, I guess not the reunion. What do they call those? Re-raise. The re-raises last year when I went to the one in Omaha. My first match ended with I'm playing the loop list, so I've stolen his White Tiger Lassie Nimbus with my Zidane, and it on its own, like on the field, was enough to win. But I was so worried about like, but what if those like 2 cards he has in hand are just enough? So I went through this overly complicated thing to like Althea to bounce to get to 3 casts, so Zidane would have haste, so I'd have 1 more attacker, and I didn't need it at all. Like I had it by a mile, but yeah, I was doing the same thing. I was like, okay, but if he has this, and I gotta protect this, but if Zidane has haste, then I could. I'm like, and so he was like, yeah, I didn't have anything. I was like, oh, okay, then I just wasted like 2 minutes of your time, and I'm sorry because I was planning all that out.
and to his credit, there's a non-zero chance. I already misplayed by overcommitting. Maybe I overcommit, or the line isn't there to get the Sophie to the field, or whatever the case may be, right? Like, but it is one of those things like I got to play around all the outs, because I already overcommitted once, and all. Oh man, I'm in there in the bathroom, trying to get my hands to stop shaking, and I'm like,
yeah.
And I realized I'm like, I think I just qualified for Nats too, because I think that's going to push me towards it. So then I sit down for my next round, and I know I'm like, oh my god, I'm playing Mono Water now, and Mono Water is the traditional worst thing you can be playing against as a Radia player.
Because the bounce is such an easy answer, and you have to restart all the counters.
Everything that deck does answers Radia. They'll bounce it. Leviathan answers it. The 2CP Leviathan summon. Any of those summons will do it. Kukulane on Radia answers it. Tros just sits there as a big turd that, like, on damage 3, not only answers it, but draws a card while answering the Radia. And I'm like, the nice thing about the Rainbow version of Radia is that you do have other modes. You have the Warrior of Light in particular gives you a chance in that matchup.
Yeah, absolutely.
By himself. But even that's tricky because if you start casting stuff after Warrior of Light, they bounce Warrior of Light. Warrior of Light's not on field anymore.
Yeah.
You have to have your backups active to do it. So you have to play in a very particular way around that. Soya, you don't want to bounce a lot of their cards because they all have on-entry effects. Like, the only good thing to bounce is, like, okay, we'll put the Una back in hand.
Yeah.
With, like, Usoya, but, like, that doesn't feel amazing. And it's
so this was Chris Lopez, right?
Chris Lopez.
Okay,
yeah.
so I got his list up, which I'm assuming, it's a water list, so they're all very similar.
They're all identical.
Yeah.
All of the water lists and Top Cut were the exact same thing.
Okay, yeah. So, as expected. So, again, you haven't gotten on stream yet. How did it go?
So, game 1, I managed to stick a Radia. And the Radia, I think, cast Sildred for me 3 times.
Wow.
And
that's surprising it lasted that long.
He even said later on he was talking to someone else, and I just kind of overheard. He's like, yeah, my opponent stuck a Radia, and I didn't have removal for it for way too long. I got all my value off of that. I accelerated. I had the game state where they couldn't assemble the Congo line / wall of monsters.
Yeah.
I had that one, Game 2, I did not manage to stick the Radia this time. And the other thing is the EX bursts in that deck are so punishing for Radia too.
Yeah, they're rough.
Like, you overcommit. It's like, okay, Warrior of Light goes back to hand, and you don't have the backups to play it. Or, like, bounce the Radia, and now all that investment to power up the Radia is now gone. It's like, even something like as innocuous as a Kukulane can be a problem, because it's like, well, I was going to use the Warrior of Light ping later, or Radia Sildra. Like, I don't want to do those too early, but I don't have a choice.
But yeah, they're saying it, do it now, or you're not gonna have it. So
yeah, so it's like there's so many situations. Yeah, and there's a lot of cards I don't fear that much. It's a big meme that's like, oh, Tidus is a burn card, but I really don't fear Tidus. Tidus was fielded against me Tidus hit the board against me 4 times. Tidus never got the draw 3 effect against me.
I brought that up on commentary when Tidus hit the board. I was like, he always says it's just a burn card. We'll see how he feels against it now. So
I do think
that was fun.
I will like slightly walk it back. The way the list is constructed right now, because previously the problem with Tidus was Tidus died to everything else mono water already died to. If you had 4 forwards on field and they played a Shantoto or like a Luso, Tidus was going to die with everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Congo line. Congo line doesn't die with Tidus anymore.
Yeah, true.
He's a little better now than he was. I will maintain that. But I always had the Amaterasu in hand for when I wanted to target it, and I'm never. There'd be times it's like I'm going to pay 3 play Tidus, and I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to pay 4 for Ridioporum. I'm going to do 2 points of damage while you're dealing me 1, and you're not going to not attack Tidus because all Tidus does is attack, right?
Mm-hmm.
But even though my little 2 forwards are weenies compared to your Tidus, I don't care. I'm doing 2 damage. You're doing 1.
Yeah.
So it's a card that like it's annoying and like it does do a good job at creating checkmate situations, but it's never one that I'm personally scared of.
Well, that's good at least. Watching it over the weekend, the way it punished so many people, I have to say, like the draw 3 does feel very excessive on it. Like I could kind of get the targeting, he dodges and sends something else away, but the drawing 3 card, like there was a match I think Okimoto was going against 13. No, it was Ice Wind, and for some reason the Ice Wind player targeted the Tidus, and like he had his hand low, but he just fed 3 cards into his hand. It's like, oh man, like that's just over there. So, and especially, but like you said, certain cards deal with it really easily, right? But then certain decks, they don't actually have much of an answer to it. So,
I think like a lot of time you can like make an argument like if whatever you're targeting is like when they play it, and you just don't have a forward, you care about getting spun back to deck, like you're not really like. When Tidus is really obnoxious is when you have like a 5-card hand or whatever. It's like, well, you're going to give me 8 cards to play with. Now
right.
I can do anything I want to. But it's like, if they're playing Tidus with 1 in hand, you can like force it back to hand on that turn. You know? It's like,
if you've got
just
that
like
set up, yeah.
cycling for 3 cards, which like you don't want to do, but like you can do. Like, to me, it really is. It's just a wave motion cannon. It does 1 point of damage every turn until you find some removal that's non-targeting for it.
Ah, the old Yu-Gi-Oh reference. Okay, so wait, did we say game 1 or game 2?
So
game 1,
2,
you stuck the ready, yeah. So game 2, what happens in this one?
So game 2, he gets the Congo line, and Fenrir is not an efficient enough out to the Congo line. Every one of those monsters is literally free. So
and he only has 1 backup Fenrir can hit, right? Yeah, the summoner.
Yeah, which is fine. Usually I'm not. I like because I can't do that much by breaking the backups anyway. I just don't hit the backups in that matchup. It's like. I have to kill Tros on site. If I don't kill Tros on site, bad things happen. So it's like the main thing I'm going to be looking to do with Fenrir in the matchup is break Tros, bring back Ceremobius, have Ceremobius fight something.
Yeah.
Or cause a fight. Or draw a card. Yeah, whichever. That was the idea anyway. And it was. So game 2, he got the Congo line assembled. He got I didn't draw Mist Dragon to like free cast at any point, so I kind of keep the break zone empty.
Yeah.
He got the Leviathan Congo line GG. So we go to game 3, once again with like 10 minutes remaining.
You should be on the play for this at least though, since you lost the previous game. I'm assuming you took first every chance you got.
So I go first in this last game, and I open, and it's like class 4th into Sarah, into Tyro. Into Warrior of Light Fusoya, and like I think I had a Mist Dragon at one point to kind of keep the break zone empty, where it's like you can't even let a Leviathan me if he wants to.
Yeah.
And my damage pressure was just so much faster and so much higher than my opponent's. That I felt pretty good, and I got ahead. And I think Sophie did an extra point of damage at one point. Sophie is maybe one of the best cards that could have ever printed for a time situation.
Yeah,
it's like the extra point of damage doesn't need the attack to go through. It's like makes a huge difference in time.
So it sounds like these matches were kind of swingy, that like he either really pushed you out or you really crushed him.
And I mean, I think you even see that a bit in the match that was on stream against Kyle, where it's like, in Mono Water is doing its thing, my deck can't function. But if my deck is doing its thing, it's still very, very impressive. Like it's it's kind of a little bit of back and forth. I just have to assume the EX bursts don't kill me, essentially.
Yeah.
Really what it comes down to.
Oh, we'll get to that.
So I take it in time, which it is what it is. The time rules in Top Cut probably should be looked at some point, to be totally honest, just because the game states get so complicated and so tricky that like if you're not playing aggro, which I'm not an aggro player. I mean, I'm a decent 13 pilot, but I don't want to play 13 at an event. It's like even there, in Kansas, I played against 13 in Top Cut. The game took 60 minutes for 2 games. Like it's 13.
Yeah, and you said no one was playing slow either. It's just it took that long.
Granted, I lost in deck out in game 2, which how do you lose the deck out against 13? But still.
Well, and we kind of touched on that the last time I talked, and I won't make a big thing about it. But I've always said it's kind of weird that you have 30 minutes for a single round, but then 3 rounds you're somehow expected to do that with 20 minutes less, where you would naturally think it's 30, 30, 30. And a point you said too with the complications, those rules were established back in Opus 1 when the game was a lot simpler. We've added a lot of things to the game since then. There are just genuinely more complicated turns and more, these big cast decks. Think how long it takes to do all those cast mechanics. So I don't think that's unreasonable to, like, now that the game has gotten bigger and more complicated, that, yeah, extend the time a little bit. I know I'd be in favor of that.
Yeah, it's just, it is what it is on that. Like I said, I sort of benefited from it a little bit this time just because of how good of a card Sophie is in a way, and like the speed at which I got set up in those, game 3s. But it does genuinely suck when, in Kansas, I was like, I'm looking up at the clock, I'm like, I have 10 minutes left. There's no way I could beat 13 in a time situation because 13 can just jump 3 forwards on turn 1.
Yeah.
What am I going to do? Or just like play lightning turn 1, swing lightning. Okay, now I'm down a point of damage on a deck that doesn't have haste.
Yeah.
And it's like, and unlike, say, like Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Has a scoop culture because Yu-Gi-Oh! It's pretty well known that, like, if your opponent has a hand that your opponent starts comboing off in Yu-Gi-Oh! And you say, okay, I win this game maybe 20% of the time, but if I scoop here, I give myself a chance to win a game 3.
Yeah.
If we get there. Final Fantasy doesn't have a scoop culture because you're never out of it in the same way. Like, think of the game I played against Brian. I thought I had a 90% chance to win that game.
Yeah.
And the Sildra, for the Sophie and try to go for the Sophie play ended up costing me that game. But, like, I can't say, like, I shouldn't scoop that game, even though, I'm so far ahead. He lost game 1. He can't scoop it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, there's no point in him doing that. So, like, the scoop culture just isn't there in the same way because we also don't play that way. Most tournaments that you play at locals are best of 1. It's the point where my locals actually runs 2 deck tourneys once a month, trying to get some experience in like 3 deck 70-minute format.
Yeah.
And even that's not perfect because I'm usually running one deck that's like relatively quick to play and one that's not. And, the stress is totally different. It's just a different animal at that point in Top Cut.
Yeah.
But at least I have some experience with best of 3 70 minutes, but which I did not for Dallas.
I wanted to use your different animal point as a segue, but it's actually the same animal because after you just slogged through mono water, you waded through that, you get it over Chris in the end. Now you got to go face the exact same deck again. Finally, this is the match we get you on stream. So I got to watch this, and so I can kind of comment along with this one too. But we know how I felt about it and how I talked about it. How did you feel about this?
So it's interesting. I got to go back and actually watch this one, and I mean, in my defense, I have played through, 2.5 hours of some of the most mind-blowing, brutal Final Fantasy I've ever played. Like these games are incredibly complicated. I'm dehydrated. I'm tired. So I definitely made a lot of misplays. I think the biggest one that everyone's gonna remember is, why did you attack the Rydia, Ghoul?
Yeah, I think, what was that, game 2?
Game
was that
2,
game
I
1?
attacked
Yeah, that was game 2.
Powered up Rydia with an Amat in hand.
Yeah, which is funny because you still went on to win that game, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I did. I thought I threw so hard when he said, "Animate Blue Worm," and I go, "Oh no."
The next one of these you do, I need to be there as your coach. Like I'm just toweling your brow and I like squirt water in your mouth. Like, come on, champ, get back in there. Like keeping you hydrated and keeping you relaxed.
Be my Doc Lewis.
Exactly. Yeah. You're a little Mac,
okay.
And you're pointing at your cards. You're throwing dice at the board. And that'd be fun. Make a little montage out of that.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. Continue.
But yeah. So game 1, we both kind of get to do what we want to do, but this time, unlike Chris, Kyle got the removal for the Rydia, so I couldn't stick a Rydia for very long. We get the monster Congo line that is I can't efficiently answer. I lose game 1. Game 2, I go first. I get set up. He doesn't draw Sildra or Lena for so long.
Yeah, that was huge.
Which made all the difference. He also wasn't on Yuna for so long, which made a huge
Yeah, I
difference
don't
as well.
think he saw Yuna that entire match, if I remember. So all his
Yeah.
summons cost their normal amount.
Which that really helped me kind of maintain where I was at, because everything else he was drawing was still answering my board very well. Like, you know, I had at one point I had like Rydia, Warrior of Light, and it's like, okay, well I'm gonna go Lightning. And it's like target the Rydia. No, it was Rydia, Warrior of Light with Sophie.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, okay, I'm gonna play Lightning, target Rydia. I'm like, well, I'm gonna Amont. He goes, switch combatant. And I'm like, crap. Then it's like, how? Because I had a Fenrir in hand. It's like, do I bring out the Ceramobius and cause the fight now and like kill the Lightning on the stack of the switch Kamada so that like it doesn't come back? It's like, well, maybe he just removes the Rydia or the wall. I had another wall in hand. Rydia's not gonna stick around anyway. He chose Sophie. I'm like, that's the one I wanted to take.
Yeah, which ended up being huge late because you would have knocked him out way sooner if you'd had Sophie.
Oh yeah, no. So removing Sophie was 100% the right call. Not even for the fact that I had the second Warrior of Light already chilling in hand, like ready to go. I was like, Warrior of Light's posing a pretty big problem for him. Maybe he'll remove that. I'll keep the Rydia and the Sophie. I'll have the best of both worlds. I don't have to pitch my whole hand for a Fenrir that doesn't feel amazing.
Yeah.
Especially because like he also could have just like pitch 3, played a Leviathan, bounce the Lightning to hand on the stack, and
yeah,
been like, I think I lose the game at that point. I'm trying to, what's the most efficient way? How am I answering his threats as efficiently as possible? Because his deck is so efficient. Water has the most efficient answers to what my deck is doing. So I need to make sure that I'm being as efficient in response. So yeah, like lots of little things like that. The Rydia attack was just a boneheaded play. I had some pretty interesting plays with. I managed to get a free cast Fenrir at one point, which I remember was
that was cool.
Nasty. It's always like one of the coolest feelings. Like, okay, cool. So we're gonna do this for free, break that back up, or break that monster, pull out a Ceramobius. Yeah, I was like ahead for most of game 2, outside of the fact like getting that last point of damage in against mono water. Sometimes like here's the Congo line.
Yeah,
the Congo line could turn into the Red Rover wall. It's like Red Rover, let Warrior of Light come over.
Yeah.
Like kind of block that. And, Tomberry's like turns into a 2 CP removal spell if like you don't have a Porum or a Warrior of Light ready. We'll say lethal in that game too was super cool.
Yeah, it took me a minute to follow what was going on because again I just see hand gestures and da 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 da. But yeah, it was what was it? You were attacking with the Warrior of Light. He animated Echidna, but then you bounced it on before it could block with the 6 CP Leviathan. And I don't think you guys actually played it out, but you basically discussed, well, he has to animate Toneberry. You shoot it on the stack. He still has to animate another one to block, and then your Sarah just goes in and finishes it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. Yeah, so I like it was Une to bounce a Porum, and then I go to combat. He animates the
Echidna.
The Echidna, bounce that with Levy 6, and he had just 2 Tomberries to block. So if he declares the block with the first Tomberry, Warrior of Light kills that. Declares the block with the second Tom. If he animates the second Tomberry, I still have the Ceramobius to attack with.
Yeah.
To get in to push that last point of damage across. Really cool lethal lines. Yeah. Always like one of my favorite things. I did accidentally you can see my nerves when I'm doing this though, because I paid 8 for Une with the game.
I know. I said that too. I was like, did he just pay 8 for that? You pitch so many in hand, and I was like, oh, he's just not going to remove the summons. And then you remove the summons too. I was like, what? Oh my.
It's funny because I looks at me, he's like, did you just pay 8 for that Une? And I look and I go, oh my god, I just paid 8 for Une. I'm like, okay.
I think you threw it.
But I used to back up. These 2 go back to hand.
That's where you need to get this man some water. I mean, Kyle had a miracle draw too, where literally his only hope was cast Cuchulainn, hope I draw into Lena, and he drew into it. I think on the stream I was like, oh my god, he actually drew that. Like, and for a second I was like, because I was being very as non-biased as I could on the stream, and hopefully I did a good job of that. But of course, in my heart, I'm rooting for you. So in my head, I'm like, oh my god, is he going to come back off of that, like off of that Lena top deck?
I think, to be fair, I think his deck was like 25 cards, and I think Sildra or Lena are both outs. So he's got like 5 outs in a 25 card deck.
I gotcha.
It wasn't like super unlikely, but it was one of those things that was just like,
oh, sure.
So well, and
on stream, it can be kind of difficult sometimes to tell how many cards you guys have left. Like when it gets super low, you can kind of see it. But sometimes it's like, oh, maybe there's only 5 cards left. No, actually, there's still like 20 somehow. Okay.
Yeah. No, there was like 20, 25 cards left. But there were so many outs. It's like every single turn he was fading draws to not draw the Sildra or the Lena. Yeah. I'm like, I'm feeling okay at that point, but
Well, and so game 3, I'm feeling good for you because he also bricked. He just put, I think, turn 1 it was Porum, if I'm not mistaken, and he
I
passed.
actually think turn 1 Porum was the best thing he could have done in that situation too.
Well, yeah, I mean, based on what he had, the other option is
Not even
discard
based on what he
pass.
had. I mean, if he has a summon in the break zone, especially like if he starts getting a Sildra into rotation, we're in time. We had 7 minutes left when that game started. So he's got a damaged threat on the field that I have no incentive to kill. Me killing that Porum would have been horrible for me in that game.
Unless you had Mist Dragon, yeah. Which
that Porum was better Tidus. That was a Tidus that cost 2.
So go ahead.
So he's dealing me a point of damage every turn. So he does a point, and I open with my normal open that I want to get, which is Sarah plus class 4th. So I go class 4th, turn 1. Turn 2, I play Sarah, get the Princess Sarah, play the Princess Sarah. And things get a little bit strange there because he's got this little Porum that's whacking me. He has a blue worm. Blue worm represents a point of damage whenever he wants to cash it in. We're coming up on a time situation. I'm against Mono Water, which has, like, let me count the EX bursts in this deck real quick.
I've got it right here. It's 18.
18 EX bursts, all of which are wildly good against me. Any of these EX bursts probably win him the game for me.
Yep, I'm pretty sure they're all draw, bounce, or get a summon back. Or I guess Ash is the one kind of just kill something.
Yeah. So like all of these, there's 18 EX bursts that I have to push through, and he has this blue worm and this stupid little 2 CP Porum that are just punching me every single turn. And I go, I cannot go to damage 4 with turns 0, 1, 2, 3 in time.
Mm-hmm.
If I do that, he just has to hold like Leviathans or whatever else and just stop me from doing damage, and I will lose the game in time. So I have to commit here. And I go, okay, I'm going to go Rydia, Porum, and I was 1 card short off being able to hold Sildra plus Amaterasu in hand. I didn't feel like I had a choice. I felt like, okay, well, at least now he can try to swing his Porum, crash the Porum into my Porum. I can get back Sildra, and I can Amaterasu his Porum. He chose not to attack. I'm like, okay, well, that's fine. You know, I end up Amaterasuing a summoner
backup.
Because in my mind, that Sildra represents everything for his deck, right? Like if I cut him off of that, he passed after that. He didn't do anything. Rydia sticks for a turn. I'm like, I got Rydia Porum. I've got 4 backups. I have a gazillion live top decks.
Except you drew Sarah and what was the other one? It was the other Porum, right?
It was Geomancer.
It's Geomancer, that's what it was, yeah. I knew it wasn't anything useful.
It's one of those things, like, it's a calculated risk that in time I cannot do 4 points of damage to Mono Water before Mono Water kills me, right? And my deck has so many live draws in that situation. So many things that just do everything for me. I've got a 4-counter Rydia. Every single summon in my deck is castable. I have all these forwards in my deck that are all crazy. You know, I have 3 Warrior of Light still in the deck. I have all my Fusolia still in deck. In my mind, that was still 100% the play that I have to make in that situation, and I just have to gamble that my top deck isn't 2 backups that don't do anything.
Having talked to you, of course, right after the event, and kind of as we've chatted since, it's very obvious you were feeling the pressure of the time limit, because I think if you knew you had plenty of time, I do think you would have made some of these plays differently.
If I know that like my opponent has to do 7 points of damage to me, I can say, okay, I have Rydia, Porum, Sildra, Amat in hand with 4 backups active. Like I feel great. Not even 4 backups. I guess I would have all my backups tapped, but like still, like I feel great at that point. Like my opponent can do whatever they want if I have Porum, Rydia, Amat, Sildra in hand.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
That wasn't how it was going to work out in that situation because of the time limit. So I had to play very conscious of that, which I don't think it's incorrect to make that play based on that read. Did it work out for me? Well, I would argue the Rydia did what she needed to do. She stopped my opponent for a turn from playing the game. She did. She canceled the summoner getting back Sildra. She lived a turn. Any top deck that does something there gives me a chance to win that game. And in my 30-card deck, I drew 2 cards that don't do anything. So it's me defending the play. I think I was caught between a rock and a hard place because of the fact that I think 2CP EX Porum was the single best card he could have played on turn 1 against me, because it is better Tidus in that situation.
Well, it's easy for me to be critical of it, especially in hindsight. But you know, you took a chance and you made, an idea, and I don't think that idea is wrong in the sense that if you draw something amazing, if you draw Warrior of Light, and you can then dig one deeper, and then you've got another summon Viridia. Like, if you draw Mist Dragon and you can knock out that, you're off to the races. You probably win. So, yeah, of course, it's easy for me to hindsight. Ooh, I didn't like the summoner cancel, and I think I said that on the stream. And of course, it was then exacerbated by the drawing the 2 backups. But if you'd drawn 2 great cards,
then we're 2 great cards, and then
we're not even talking about it.
I swing Porum. He decides to not block, which is probably correct for him at that point, I guess. And he gets Porum EX, the other Porum EX the damage. It's like, cool.
I think on the stream I just did my normal, like, oh, you know, burst for Kyle. I did my little bonus burst, but internally I was like,
it's like I just spent Amaterasu to stop this exact thing from happening,
and he just got it anyway. Yeah.
It's like, and at that point, it's like, well, the game is over. But like, I have to attack because the time limit situation is coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have. Later on, I actually realized that I had a Geomancer. I should have cracked the Geomancer to get my Porum Brave.
Oh yeah, and
like,
keep it as a
defender.
defender.
Function as a blocker. But like, that was the turn I had the access to do that. It is what it is. Like,
it is what it is.
I can't complain. Like, I played a bad matchup into 2 of the best players at the event, and I walked away with 2 wins in regulation, 1 win in time, and 1 loss in time. And that list had 4 pilots on it that were on that exact 50 cards. And in non-matches that were not playing themselves, they went 20-2 in Swiss.
Yeah, which is absurd.
I single-handedly gave them more losses than they got the entirety of Swiss, including the person that didn't make top cut out of them.
Which is just crazy.
And it's like, what, like, can you be mad about that in any situations? Like, I played, and again, that is a bad matchup for my deck. Half of my, I can't, Une really isn't going to stick around for a turn.
Mm-hmm.
Idiot. Very hard to stick to the field. Porum's good, but I'm not going to get her to 3 counters ever.
Yeah. Well, so speaking of that, can you be mad in that situation? How did you feel? So you had this great run. You've got your Nats invite. So you have so much to be proud of. Were you just like relieved? Were you happy? Or was there still a feeling of like disappointment? Like, oh man, I wish I'd made it. Like, how did you feel once the match was over?
I mean, like, I was a little bit disappointed. Like, and it's not what it says. It's like, clearly I could have played better here and there, but it's like, how mad can you be? I beat 2 incredible players in Top Cut, 2 incredible nice competitors. I lost to someone who was an incredible player in their own right. I got my Nats invite. I just missed a day 2 skip by like the skin of my teeth. Like, that game, I really don't think that game that I was in that like final game anyway. Like, I wasn't the blowout by any means.
Yeah, which was great. It was nice that it was back and forth.
I played that matchup hard, and I did everything that I meant to do. And I came up just like tiniest bit short, but I got the Cloud Mat, which was like one of my big goals for the competitive season.
Yeah.
I had 4 chances. I got it on my 2nd try, which feels amazing. Like, how mad can you really be? And it's like, somebody has to win the tourney and somebody has to lose it.
It's not wine, but here's a toast to you, sir. Congratulations on a great, great run and wonderful finish. Again, you got so much out of it, and I'm so happy for you and good for you for just really sticking with it. Dude, we've been talking for a long time. I know you've gone through all that. Is there anything else you wanted to mention on the day? Just whatever random thoughts in general? Do you want to wrap up?
I just want to say, like, massive. So many people come up to me over the course of the event and go, "You run that YouTube channel, don't you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, that's me. I'm a nerd that occasionally talks about card games on my YouTube."
It's like, touche.
Yeah, it's like, but it's just funny. It's like, so like, if you did come up to me, like, I just want to say like a massive thank you. Like, really, I really do appreciate all like the people that are like, wishing me well and saying like, "Oh my God, I got to meet Ghoul02 and I got to talk with Ghoul and all this other stuff." And it's like, it's kind of like it's fun having some notoriety. It's like people's like, "Oh wow, that's Ghoul. He's the guy that like talks on YouTube and stuff." And I put you on my TV all the time, and I've listened to you while I'm at work, like you're a podcast and all sorts of stuff. And it's like, I love that. It's super, super awesome. And I'm sorry if I come off a little bit awkward in person. I'm not used to that at all. So, but like seriously, it's like, it's super, super cool. I have like, I had a great time, chatting with people. It's like, "Oh, so what deck did you bring?" "Oh yeah, you talked about this and I brought this." Like, yeah, that's a great deck. Someone mentioned they were bringing like they played Soiree, and I'm like, yeah, Soiree is a great deck. Soiree is a deck that gives you a chance to win any given tournament you're playing in. That's fantastic. It's like, it was like, "Well, it's my first tournament. I didn't do great." I'm like, that's fine. Tourneys, there's so much that goes into a tourney that isn't just like playing well at the tourney. Is kind of what I really want to like stress across. And I hope that anybody that like didn't have the tourney they wanted at least got something out of the event they were excited about. So
Absolutely. Well, dude, do you want to wrap up, or you got anything else you want to?
I think I'm going to probably wrap it up there. Lovely event. Huge shout outs to the shop, the David, and oh my God, what's her name?
Yanez?
Inez, yeah. Super fantastic people to be around. Thank you all so much. The event, obviously we can't run without our judges, and they're running, back and forth between this tent and this indoor building. I'm sure that's, tricky, and I had a great time. Super happy to be in San Diego. Big shout outs to my, my good friend Alex for also topping the event.
Absolutely.
Almost out of nowhere on 13. You got to see him on stream twice, even.
I know, I did. Yeah, it was fun to watch.
I got to play. He was on there's really cool list of 13 actually. It's like a hybrid between like the forward heavy like Alize Squall variant with like also like having the Seymour and like the 13 summons in the package too. Really, really cool list. One of my favorite 13 lists I've actually seen. No bias whatsoever. Definitely didn't help him build the deck or anything like that. But yeah, super awesome event. I was super happy to be there.
You did great, man. And so, all right, so step one in the testing process is complete. Now we just got to get Hood's Claw there, and we got the boys representing at Nats. So I can't congratulate you enough. You absolutely earned it. You crushed it. It was awesome. I'm very proud of you. I'm sure so many people are very proud of you. I hope you're very proud of yourself because you totally deserve it. Now we'll see if we can get you to Worlds is, I guess, the next step. So
let's say, well, the next step is let's see if I can get that day 2 skip at either Dallas or Portland.
Right? Well, okay, so as we end this will be my final question to you. Now that you do have an invite secure, and you don't have to, of course, spoil any decks that you're going to play, but are you going to play like super serious still? Or are you going to be like, you know what, I kind of want to mess around?
I mean, if I'm going to enter, I want to do it well. It's kind of my thought process. If I'm going to play a deck, I want to play a deck that I feel like I have a chance to play. And I'll straight up admit I was scared playing Rainbow Radiant at this event because people recognize that, that was the Ghoul02 list of Rydia, and I'm like, I don't think I own that Rainbow Rydia list, but people are like associating it with me. It's like, people are going to know what I'm on before I'm even playing, and this is like, I think one of the best decks, so it's going to have like a big target on its back, and people are going to be teching to beat me. But like, if I'm in an event, I'm in it to win. Is kind of my thought process. I'm not going to invest the time. Yeah. I would love to play something like Archfiends is one of my favorite decks from this set. I love New Golbez is one of the most fun cards I think in the game. And I honestly think there's a chance I could do well with that list. Like I could top with it. I think I could,
I know we've had other people top. We've seen some Archfiends on top cuts.
Yeah,
so
no, it's topped before. I think it's a very slept on list. It's a very fun list. I don't think it would give me the best chance to top, so I will say, a spoiler, I'm unlikely to play it for Dallas. But I want to play a deck that gives me a chance. Also, like I want to, get more stuff. The Cloud promo is awesome. If you haven't seen it in person, like it's super cool. That mat, I want to win it because a couple people in Dallas like I want to copy the mat. I'm like I want to keep my own mat, but like I want to like also help other people in Dallas get access to that too. And it's like, well, if I do that, I gotta win. I gotta keep the W train rolling. So whether it's on Rainbow Rydia, whether it's on some other list that you guys may see in the future, who knows? But I will be in Dallas attempting to win it, and we'll see how that goes.
Excellent. Well, of course, I will wish you the best of luck as always. Folks, if you like this, feel free to like and subscribe. Leave any comments or questions you have for Ghoul. I'll have all the links to FF decks in the description below where you can check out his deck list and everything that made top cut. We're going to wrap up here for today. So, Daniel, thank you so much for coming on with me. I always enjoy getting to catch up with you.
Also, don't forget, if you're not subscribed, go subscribe to me on YouTube as well.
I will have his information in there as well. I'll make sure to put all the, because he does hard work and it should be rewarded. So all the relevant information, find it in that description. And that's going to be it for us. We're going to sign off. I am Travis Rudros Pfeiffer, Daniel Ghoul02, and until next time, take care.